Hello, friends, and welcome back to Not Another Mindset Show. This episode is unlike any other episode I have done before. However, I've had a handful of you asking to do some more, not necessarily personal podcasts, but more behind the scenes of business related stuff. And for those of you who don't know, I do some business mentorship in addition to the mentorship I do from a behavior change mindset and psychology coaching perspective. So I have the health mindset coaching certification, which equips coaches to better understand the science of mindset, behavior change, and psychology, and use that with your clients to help them stick to the plan, stop self-sabotage, and ultimately stick with you longer. So that is my bread and butter program. But my other most favorite thing, aside from mindset and behavior change and psychology, is business. I love the game of business, and I've been a business owner now for going on, this will be my 5th year, 6th year, something like that, and have learned so much in that process and have really just fallen in love with the process of what business is. And so I have kind of packaged that up and turned that into a mentorship as well. That is the Growth Collective. So I do some one-on-one mentorship with intermediate to advanced business owners, mainly health and fitness professionals who are looking to scale their businesses. And I've been doing that for about 4 years now. And on the podcast, I would love to talk more business specific stuff too, just to the point where it makes sense for you to learn and grow and develop. And I can pull the curtain back and teach you in this capacity as well. So on that note, like I said, this is a very different episode. It probably will be a shorter episode because I'm just kind of doing a where I'm at in business at this point, and it's about mid-year. I'm recording this episode in May. You will probably be hearing this at the end of June, July type of time frame, so mid-year. And I'm hoping that, number one, it's just interesting for you to hear kind of like some of the behind the scenes ongoings from a business perspective. And two, just to kind of see how you guys feel about it. So this is one of those episodes where I really, really, really do want to hear from you, because I am happy to never do an episode like this again if it's not interesting to you, if you're not getting anything out of it, and you're like, Kasey, can we just get back to the mindset coaching tips? Like I'm here sitting in this chair recording this for you. This is not for me. This is for you. So I really need your feedback here. So if you're willing to send me a DM on Instagram, send me an email, I really would love to hear your feedback on this episode. And truly, if you're like, hey, Kasey, it was fun to listen to, but not really sure I need any more of that, like, please tell me. I'm very open to feedback with my growth mindset on these things. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about though, there is like some mindset aspects to it, because let me tell you, being a business owner is probably the biggest and best mindset exercise that exists. And I say best only if you are equipped and know how to leverage it in that way, because otherwise, honey, it can ruin you. It can ruin you real quick. And I know for those of you who are business owners listening to this, you're nodding along like, I feel that. So where I want to start is in December of last year, December 2024. My team and I went on a retreat to Arizona. We went to a business event that I was a speaker at, and we spent 6.5 hours on the Sunday before we all flew home to plan out the 2025 year, the calendar for the business, our goals for the business, and we had never done this before. In fact, I have set goals for the business, goals for myself, every year in business, but they've been relatively like lofty goals. I had never actually mapped out an entire year of a game plan down to the quarterly goals, what we have to do on a weekly basis. And we did a lot of that in this planning session. And something else I had never done before is actually bring my team in on that goal planning process, which I know seems kind of probably crazy. And like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, how did I not do that? However, this is where the mindset stuff comes in. The reason I didn't bring my whole team in to help with the goal planning process and spend some time figuring out what our goals are, what we want the year to look like, what we need to do in order to make that happen, is because I felt like my role as the CEO of the business, it was my responsibility to set these goals, monitor these goals, and make sure that they happen. what felt like pushing off responsibility to my team for the goals that I was setting in the business, because ultimately I am the business owner and my team is a massive, massive support in that. Some of you might be listening to this and you're like, I don't even have a team yet, but that's okay, because if you do want to get there, then you still need to listen to this stuff. If you do have a team, then, and you maybe even in that spot of like, yeah, I don't really like involve my people in this process. Let me tell you, it was relatively groundbreaking for me and for my own mindset. I, for so long, felt like I was a burden to my team by going to them and saying, okay, these are the goals we have to hit. This is the revenue we need to get from this launch. And this is the thing that I want to prioritize. And instead I was like assigning tasks, and everyone knows their roles and responsibilities in the business. But they weren't really in tune and didn't really have the information that they really needed in order to perform their best. And I'm really recognizing that now as we've seen this kind of play out. I'm really glad I'm doing this podcast now in May, after we had this big gathering in December to map all of this out, so I can kind of tell you how those things have been going. So I felt like I would be a burden as a CEO to go to my team and be like, hey, here's the goals for the year. This is what we're doing, which doesn't sound so silly. It sounds so silly. But I was obviously very wrong. My own mindset was definitely getting in the way here. And after 6.5 hours of us sitting in the living room of an Airbnb and had all of these different ClickUp is the software that we use for project management and customer relationship management, all of that. Everything is in ClickUp these days. So we had all these different ClickUp lists pulled up. We had documents. We were in it for 6.5 hours in this living room. And I actually went to my team members after and asked them what it was like to be involved in that process. And I want you to hear what they had to say. I pulled some quotes for them. It made it so that everyone is rowing the boat in the same direction, so to speak, because from the jump, we all know the meaning and reasoning behind where we're going this year and how we're going to get there. This makes everyone feel bought into the goals and that they aren't just your goals, but our goals. Mainly, it gave me so much more confidence in my role on the team and feeling a sense of belonging and like I can sit at this table and bring something to help that bigger picture come to life. What? And I was holding that magic back? Isn't that crazy? And here's the thing, like I would call myself a successful business owner and have been for years now. Can you imagine what we're going to be capable of now that I got out of my own way instead of being like, I'm the CEO and I have to set all this stuff and take care of all this stuff and you guys can support me, but I'm not going to bring you in over here, because I felt like a burden, because I felt like that was not something that I wanted to give them responsibility for, because it felt like it was not necessary for them. And I didn't want to burden them and overwork them or anything like that, or make them take 6.5 hours of a Sunday to sit down and talk through these things. But the reality is it made them feel like they were actually part of the team, instead of me saying, okay, I have my goals over here, but I'm going to hold it close and not tell you about it. Which my intention was not to leave anybody out or to be secretive, but instead just felt like, I don't know, that's not worth their time. When the reality is it was more than worth their time, and everybody is communicating better and is working towards the same goals and visions. And it's so helpful too, because at this point in my business, and like Kira, if you're listening to this, Kira is my right hand in the business, and I'm sort of the visionary, the big picture person, and she's the one who actually makes sure that everything happens. So I could really play that role of like, here are my goals and dreams for the business and what I would love to see happen and where we need to go. And this is the direction we would have to take in order to make this other thing happen. And then Kira could take all of that in and go, okay, now how do we turn this into like a systemized process, which is amazing and takes off so much of the burden from me. And she will accept that quote unquote burden because it gives her a sense of purpose too. And then we had everyone else in the room too, from podcast manager to social media support to like oversight of admin tasks and like customer service. Everyone was in there, so everyone understood where we're going together, and it just ended up being such a beautiful process. And especially after chatting with everybody about how it made them feel, I was really like, damn, Kasey. Sometimes I do one of my like worries as a business owner is that I am not ever going to be a good enough leader. And this was a really eye-opening experience for me of like, wow, you're so worried about not being a good leader that you were like holding back all of this information in order to try to be a better leader. So you're not burdening your people, but you were actually not being a good leader because you were doing that. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I want to share a little bit about what we did during that 6.5-hour meeting and what we're doing now, and kind of a big purpose around that too. So big things were we were reviewing numbers, profit, loss, revenue from launches, things like that over the year of 2024. And knowing that, and I've shared this on the podcast before, but I had a one-on-one health and fitness coaching company for many years. And last year in 2024, we decided to sunset that offer, meaning we no longer take one-on-one health and fitness coaching clients. KJO Coaching was that company, that was that arm of my business, no longer exists at this point. So that was a really big, really hard decision that took probably 2 years for me to actually make that decision. It is absolutely terrifying to cut off an arm, a revenue stream in your business that is relatively just like a well-oiled machine that you've been doing for so long. And also it was my first baby. It's how I got into everything. It did get to the point where having a health and fitness coaching company and then also having the health mindset coaching certification and speaking to coaches for the certification and then speaking to prospective clients on the one-on-one coaching side, I was pulled in too many directions, and it was getting to the point where it was just, I couldn't do it anymore. And that's the truth. So, but it's scary to say like, we're going to go all in on this one side of the business instead of having both sides. So knowing going into 2025 that we no longer could rely on that monthly recurring revenue from the coaching company, the biggest goal for us in 2025 was how can we use what we already have in the business and not try to like reinvent the wheel and create a bunch of new stuff. How can we use what we already have that maybe hasn't been getting enough nurturing and attention because we had the coaching business that could then make up for the coaching business revenue? So what do we already have that we could be doing better rather than doing more? And that is a lesson, my friends, that I think so many people need to understand in business, is that it's not about constantly creating new offers and doing new things and doing more and working harder, but instead working smarter instead of working harder, but actually looking at what you already have and figuring out what your main focus is and going from there. And we also were recognizing too that there was so much overhead on the coaching side because I had to pull myself out so much and focus on the certification side. So ultimately it became like, what is going on in the business where we could put more time and attention that's not coaching, since that no longer exists, and is not the certification, because that's already the largest part of our revenue in the business. And for us, that was, we have an alumni group for the health mindset coaching certification. So in that alumni group, you get continued access to the course content, anything new that we add to the course. You get to come to any future cohort calls. You can kind of redo the certification again and again, as long as you're in the alumni group. We also have private alumni group only calls, 2 per month right now. One is led by me and one is led by Sarah, who is our co-instructor. And it's all about application and using the skills from what you learned in the certification, going over client cases and kind of like troubleshooting all of that together, and lots of other resources and special events for those who are in the alumni group. So that offer was something that was kind of put on the back burner and was doing well, but could have been doing way better if we actually gave it the time and attention that it deserved. So that was a big, but one thing I will say here is that we went into this meeting going, okay, what are the biggest dial movers that we need to focus on in 2025? And not like 10, not even 5, but just what are a few that really need to be the main focus. So the alumni group was one of them. Our DIY programs and offers was another one. I have a bunch of them. I rarely talk about them, and therefore they rarely get sold. Big surprise. When you don't talk about an offer, it's just going to like sit on a shelf and nobody's going to know about it. So I have a handful of DIY programs for coaches to learn how to insert the science of mindset and behavior change into things like their coaching forms and documents. That's Transform Your Forms. We have a product called The Psychology of Signing More Clients, which teaches you essentially about buyer behavior and decision making and how to use that in your business. So really fun, awesome freaking offers. Like I love these things. there was just like, I didn't have the time and attention or strategy or structure for actually selling these things on a consistent basis. So alumni group, DIY offers, and then also just trying to do even more inside the health mindset coaching certification launches. We only open for enrollment 2 times per year. So there's only 2 times per year where the business can actually bring in money from the certification. So essentially, how do we do that better? How do we do more with our alumni group and the DIY offers? Notice I did not say, let's create something entirely new to replace the coaching company. Instead, it was, what are we already doing that we could be doing better? So from there, we also talked about other priorities. Like those are the big priorities to try to essentially fill the gap that we will now be missing from the coaching company. The other big priority is the podcast. Hi, hello, here we are. So really focusing on the podcast and how to grow that, what that looks like, what metrics we should be shooting for, what needs to happen in order to get it out in front of more people rather than just recording and publishing and hoping for the best. So really trying to get some more strategy behind all of these things. So with all of these, we went through, again, 6.5 hours of stuff, okay? Went through and set good, better, and best goals. So we know if we hit the good goals, as far as revenue goes, for the HMCC launches, for the DIY offers and the alumni group, if we hit those good goals, we're going to be solid. We will hit the goals that we need to in order to recoup revenue that is no longer coming in from the coaching company. It will keep the business where it's at. Notice this year is a big year of let's figure out what we can do with what we already have. This is not a huge looking for massive growth this year, but more or less, how do we maintain what we've been doing while getting rid of an entire arm of revenue, which is the coaching company? So good, better, best goals. We have the good goals, the better, best, the good goals, the better goals, and the best goals that we're hitting. And we then broke those down into quarterly goals and then monthly goals. So going forward, every single month at the top of the month, we're getting together and we're talking about what do we need to achieve this month for each of these priorities. The priorities being the alumni group, the DIY offer, what we need to do for those HMCC launches, and then the podcast. So we're chatting about the goals, and then at the top of the month, at the end of the month, we're reviewing them. In fact, we're actually spending time looking at these numbers every single week. We have a standing meeting every single Monday where Kira and I are running through these numbers. Kira's kind of managing all of those numbers. We're chatting about it. Where are we at? What do we need to do for the rest of the month in order to hit at least the good goal, if not the better or the best goal? And then at the end of the month, we're reviewing that. Where are we at? Did we come up short? Where are we ahead? What does that look like? What does that mean for our focus for the next month? And with that, we're even breaking that down further into something that we're calling 7-14 goals and responsibilities. 7 is 7 days, 14 is 14 days. So every week on those Monday meetings, we're saying, okay, what needs to happen in the next 7 days before our next meeting? And then also what needs to be happening in the next couple of weeks to secure these goals, like what we're working on. So we are really, as you can see, getting into the nitty-gritty details of what is happening on a weekly basis in order to hit a year-long goal. So this is so helpful because it's very clear to everyone exactly what they need to be working on, exactly what needs to be happening on a weekly basis that will allow us to secure these goals. Makes it very clear for everybody. Everyone knows what they're supposed to be working on, how they're contributing to the team, and it's been going really, really well. So we're still getting the hang of some things, and some things are doing better than others. Some things we're looking at, wow, we're hitting our best goal every time. This is awesome. And some other ones, we haven't even hit the good goal, and that's okay. And it's been really interesting too, because it's kind of evening itself out regardless. So at this point, we are at a place mid-year where we are absolutely on track to do the same revenue that we did last year and continue to be a 7-figure a year business. So this will be our 5th year being a 7-figure business, but without an entire coaching company, like a thing that was like such a massive part of the business and allowing us to see that 7 figures of revenue each year. So on that note, like I said, some things are doing better than others. We're really having fun getting creative and trying new things, but also not trying to overwork or reinvent the wheel. And I will say, this spring 2025 certification launch was great. It was the best launch we've had yet. Not by a massive margin, like we're talking 7%, but still the best yet. And it's really cool, especially in the industry right now, in the health and fitness industry. We're hearing a lot of people struggle. So to be able to see that we are still growing, even if it's at a slower pace, is really beautiful to see, especially given all of the restructuring and reworking that we've had to do in the business this year. So one thing I will say is we definitely overworked in this most recent launch. It was our 10th round of HMCC, our 10th time launching this program, and I have never had to work as much during a launch as I did during this launch. And same goes for Kira. So we were both we were both running ourselves into the ground. And like sometimes, you get to this place too where it's like, okay, we got to just put our heads down and get to work, and we're going to get scrappy and try all of these different things. But we're talking like 15-hour days, sometimes more than that, during enrollment week. So it was like 5 days of 15-hour days, which is physically hard, physically, mentally exhausting. So Kira and I came out of that going like, wow, okay, launch did well. But given how much more we had to work, that this does not seem like it matches up. And so for me, the launch was a success, but there was still some disappointment in how much I had to work and how much my team had to work. And I care, honestly, so much more about my team than I even care about myself. But it did feel like a little bit of a step back. And this is me just being fully transparent and honest, because up until this point, it kind of felt like these launches were, and they still are, rinse and repeat and just make small tweaks. And how can we just like adjust the strategy slightly to see if that makes a difference? And it's so much freaking fun. It's so much fun. But this did feel a little bit like a step back, because mainly it was us just saying, let's try this, let's do this thing, let's try something different mid-launch. And that can be all fun and games until you realize you're working 15-hour days. So that's definitely something we're taking into the next launch and trying to be more aware of and plan ahead for, rather than trying to make some of these big decisions to do different things and try different things in the middle of the launch. So to some degree, sure, it worked. Like we did better than we have before, but I'm not sure the amount that we put in is what got us that 7%, if that makes sense. So definitely, again, like a little bit of a work smarter, not harder lesson for ourselves, and just kind of wanting to share that too, because we're still learning and we're still kind of like, quote unquote, making mistakes, and things aren't going to plan always. So definitely something we're taking back to the drawing board to see how we can make that shift, because the goal is not to just like continue to work more and more and more to do better and better and better, but it's actually to hopefully work less and make things feel easier while we're also scaling the business. So that is something we're kind of like taking home, because it was a bit of an overwork moment, when the goal is to not be overworking this year, even in light of the fact that we are doing the restructuring and we lost this revenue arm in the business. So yeah, overall though, the process of what we're doing to like set ourselves up for the year, the week by week, month by month, quarter by quarter goal process that we have in place, it's all been feeling really, really good. And it's been really exciting and really fun too, really fun. And we're doing another team retreat in July, where we will review kind of where we're at for 6 months of the year after our last retreat that was in December, and set ourselves up for success for the last half of 2025. And that will be really fun to be able to see like, okay, these were the goals that we had. Where are we at? Now, where do we need to maybe turn up the dial of our focus on something else versus another thing? So yeah, team is so important, especially when you get to this level. I mean, there's so many times Kira and I are like always joking about how I don't even know if I could like wake up and like do a work day without her, if I could actually like get through anything without her. And it's not just her either. It's really the entire team. There's no way. I don't even know how did I ever do a health mindset coaching certification launch without my team. It's like blows my mind that I was capable of doing this on my own ever. But we all start there. I did start alone. I was doing every single thing in my business by myself for a while. So I will encourage you at this point, though, that if you're feeling like I might be ready to hire my first virtual assistant or outsource my podcast or something, just know that there is going to be a period of time where it's scary. I mean, it's still scary. It's still scary for me to outsource things. And I'm constantly looking for things that, like Kira calls, this is not a Kasey task. Like, ask yourself, is this a Kasey task or is it a task for somebody else? So I am still looking at that, but it feels like I'm continuously relinquishing control, which is a good thing. And I'm focusing on the things that are like within my zone of genius, but it's becoming less and less like I know what's going on in the business all of the time. And that is a little bit of a scary feeling, but it's also a very freeing feeling. So ultimately you get to decide what things mean, right? So I'm going to decide right now, it is a freeing feeling. It is not scary, right? So yeah, I am so open to sharing more of this kind of stuff with you. If you want to talk more about building a team, if you want to hear more about the trajectory of my business and at what point I started hiring people and outsourcing things, like what that looked like, I'm so happy to pull back the curtain so long as it would be helpful to you. So again, please let me know if you would like to hear more about this, more about the business, more about business strategies in general. I know I've done a couple episodes about the psychology of selling and things that are parallel to like the business world, but still kind of pulling in psychology with that. So I know I talked about mindset a little bit here because again, you can't do business without thinking about your mindset. Let me tell you what. So, okay, I will leave you with that. And I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll see you next week.